She walked into the design expo thinking it was just another assignment. But what she saw stopped her heart. Her design. Stolen. Displayed under her ex's company name. He told her no one would remember something that simple. But now, the world applauded it. So the question wasn't, was it hers? It was, would she finally speak up or walk away again? Lena's breath caught. The curved partitions, the soft oak tones, it was all hers. She stepped closer, heart pounding, as the applause echoed around her like distant thunder. Her ex, Damon, turned from the crowd. "Didn't think you'd come," he said coolly. She met his gaze without blinking. "No," Lena replied, "but this time I'm not leaving empty-handed." The humid evening air at LAX buzzed with noise, honking horns, overhead announcements, and the chorus of rolling luggage. Lena Hartley stood at the edge of the arrival zone, clutching her cousin's rideshare tablet like a lifeline. On the screen glowed a simple name, Julian W. She pulled her threadbare coat tighter and adjusted the crossbody bag slung over her shoulder. This wasn't her world, airports and waiting zones. She was an interior design student, not a chauffeur. But her cousin had begged her to cover just one shift. "It's an easy pickup," she'd promised. "A guy named Julian. Terminal B. That's it." Simple. Only nothing ever felt simple to Lena these days. Rent was late. Her sketchpad hadn't seen inspiration in weeks. Her professor barely made eye contact after her last critique. She just needed a win. Any win. Even if it was showing up and doing this one thing right. As a new wave of passengers emerged through the sliding doors, Lena scanned the crowd. Her eyes landed on a man standing casually near the curb, duffel bag slung over one shoulder. He wore a navy coat that looked effortlessly tailored and sunglasses that made no sense in the dusky light. Yet there was something calm about him, something grounded, like he didn't just belong here, he commanded the space around him. Lena hesitated, then stepped forward, lifting the tablet slightly. "Excuse me," she said, trying not to sound too unsure. "Are you Julian W.?" The man turned to her, lowered his sunglasses, and studied her face for a beat. Then he smiled, slow and easy. "I'm Julian," he replied, "and I definitely need a ride." Relief bloomed across her face. She quickly motioned toward the compact car she had borrowed. "Right this way." They drove out of the terminal, the city lights unfolding before them in golden ribbons. Lena focused on the road, hyper-aware of everything. The way he sat upright, the faint accent in his voice, the silence that didn't feel awkward, but rather comfortable. "So, heading to downtown?" she asked lightly. "Sure," he said, eyes on the window. "Let's see where the road takes us." 15 minutes in, her phone buzzed with a new message from her cousin. "Hey, your Julian W. just called. He's still waiting at Terminal B." Lena's breath caught. She glanced at her rearview mirror. The man was still calmly gazing out the window, completely unaware. Or worse, completely aware. Her stomach dropped. She pulled into a side street and braked. Turning back with embarrassment flushing her face, she said, I think I picked up the wrong Julian." To her surprise, he didn't look upset. He smiled instead. "No worries," he said. "Maybe I wasn't the right Julian on your list, but maybe I'm the one you were meant to find." And just like that, the mistake that should have ruined her night quietly changed her life. Lena's phone buzzed, jolting her out of the quiet comfort of the drive. New message from Cora. "Lena, where are you? Julian W. just called. He's still waiting at Terminal B." The color drained from her face. "Oh no," she whispered, heart pounding. She swerved gently into a quiet side street, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. She had one job, one easy favor to get her cousin off her back and prove to herself she wasn't always the girl who messed things up. I picked up the wrong Julian," she said, voice barely audible as she turned in her seat to face him. "I am so sorry. I can take you wherever you need to go. I didn't mean to." But Julian Westbrook wasn't angry. He looked at her with calm eyes and the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Honestly, this detour might be exactly what I needed." Lena blinked. "What?" "I've been on 6 flights in 4 days. Meetings, pitches, reports. I wasn't even sure why I came back to LA. He glanced out the window at the sun dipping low beyond the palm-lined street. But this unplanned moment, it's the first thing that's felt real in weeks. Something softened in her chest. Still gripping the steering wheel, Lena let out a laugh. Small, nervous, but genuine. I feel like I ruin everything, she admitted. I wasn't even supposed to be driving today. My cousin's the rideshare queen. I'm just the backup plan. A backup with a stack of overdue rent, a half-finished design portfolio, and one very empty fridge. Julian didn't interrupt. He simply listened, and in that silence, Lena felt heard in a way she hadn't in a long time. I want to be an interior designer, she continued. Not for luxury. I want to design places that make people breathe again. You know? Like the kind of space where you walk in and just exhale, like the room is holding you. He nodded slowly. I do know. That's rare. Most people don't think about how rooms feel. She glanced at him. What do you do? A pause, then, almost sheepishly. I run a small company in London. Well, not that small. Lena smiled, not pushing for more. It didn't matter in this moment who he was. They sat for a while, two strangers in a borrowed car under a purple California sky. The city buzzed just blocks away, but inside that car it was quiet. Easy. What if we drove a little longer? Julian asked finally. You mean, like, detour again? He laughed. Exactly. She looked ahead, then back at him. Why not? She said, shifting into gear. And as they drove off, neither noticed how the mistake had faded, replaced by something deeper. A connection that didn't need directions, just time. The hotel lobby glowed with soft gold as Julian stepped out of the car, duffel slung casually over his shoulder. Lena popped the trunk and moved to help, but he waved her off gently. You've already taken me farther than expected, he said with a warm half-smile. She returned it shyly. Thanks for not reporting me to rideshare jail. He chuckled as he turned toward the entrance. Lena slid back into the driver's seat, her thoughts tangled. She had just spent an hour talking about dreams she'd never said aloud, even to herself. As she pulled away, something slipped from her canvas bag in the back seat and fluttered unnoticed to the curb. Julian, pausing near the revolving door, caught the movement out of the corner of his eye. He turned, bent down, and picked up the sheet of thick ivory paper. A design sketch, ink, graphite, and delicate watermarks. A curved modular shelf wrapped seamlessly into a wall niche, the structure both aesthetic and functional. The lines were fluid, alive, and in the lower right corner, LH Studios, Horizon Concept. Julian froze. He hadn't seen that name in years. But the design? He knew it instantly. 3 years ago, during a private acquisition auction hosted through a closed creative network, a collection had come through, labeled anonymously. One entry under the codename Horizon had captivated him. It was too raw for mass production, too honest for commercialization. So instead of licensing it out, Julian had quietly purchased it himself, to protect it, to wait until it had the right home. But something had gone wrong. His team had later discovered the concept resurfacing, marketed under a different name, stripped of its soul and repackaged by Vinton and Cole Studio, specifically Damon Cole. That name now clicked in his mind like a gunshot. Lena had mentioned him briefly, her ex who thought her dreams were too soft, too naive. Julian stared at the sketch again. It wasn't coincidence. The signature, the vision, the conversation in the car about breathing rooms and restorative space, it all pointed to one truth. Lena Hartley was the original creator of the Horizon concept, and someone close to her, someone she once trusted, had stolen it from her. He sat with the drawing on the desk in his suite for a long time. The lines were just as mesmerizing now as they had been when he first saw them. But now they carried weight, context, pain. He pulled out his laptop and logged into the company archives. Within minutes, he found it. The Horizon file. Initial submission. Anonymous. Purchased by Westbrook Innovations. Stored for future development. Then, illegally sublicensed through a third-party prototyping agency. The name Damon Cole was on every leaked document his legal team had flagged. Julian leaned back in his chair, still holding Lena's sketch like it was something sacred. She had no idea. No idea that her work had already once captivated a CEO on the other side of the Atlantic. No idea that it had been protected quietly by the very man she had accidentally driven across LA. He glanced down at the folded sketch once more and ran his fingers over the initials, LH Studios. It wasn't just good, it was genius. And it wasn't just stolen, it had been silenced. But not anymore. Julian tucked the page carefully into the inside pocket of his jacket. Not yet, he thought. She deserves to see it with her own eyes first. And this time, she'll know what it's worth. 3 days later, Lena received a message from Julian. Heading to the Interior Design Expo downtown. Want to help me review some showroom mock-ups? Could use a creative eye. There were no formalities, no explanation. Just that calm, open tone she remembered from the car. Curious, respectful. It unsettled her in the best way. She hesitated, then typed back, "Sure, why not?" The expo hall downtown shimmered with glass and wood textures, like a cathedral for creators. Towering panels of innovative designs reached the rafters, sunlight catching on metallic finishes. The energy was bold, modern, everything Lena once dreamed of entering. Julian met her at the main entrance, dressed in a charcoal blazer and open-collar shirt. Not a trace of his CEO status on display. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. He simply nodded toward the inner gallery. They walked side by side in silence, past booths glowing with backlit panels, suspended light structures, reclaimed wood installations. Lena's eyes scanned everything with professional interest, until she stopped cold. A curved wooden shelving system, warm oak tones blending into textured concrete, modular, organic, familiar. Her steps slowed, her throat tightened. The booth sign read, Eclipse Collection, Vinton and Cole Studio. She didn't breathe, it was hers. The fluid arcs, the foundational joints, the small embedded lighting strip hidden behind the back beam. Something she sketched on a coffee receipt after watching sunlight fall between blinds in her apartment. Her work, on display under Damon Cole's brand. Admired, celebrated. Her fingers curled into trembling fists. "This is mine," she whispered, voice cracking. Julian stood beside her without speaking. He didn't rush, didn't interrupt. Only after a long pause did he say softly, "I bought that design 3 years ago. At a private concept auction. It came in anonymously, no name, just the Horizon concept." She turned to look at him. "I didn't know it was yours, not until the day in the car," he continued, "when you talked about what you wanted to build, what it meant to you. It clicked. Every line. It was already yours." Lena felt dizzy. "You knew," she said, barely audible. "I suspected. I needed to be sure. You deserve to see it yourself, because only you could recognize what it really is." Tears welled up, but she blinked them away. "Not here. Not in front of this." Damon's voice echoed from across the room. He was speaking with investors, laughing, showcasing her design like a trophy. Lena didn't move. She didn't run, but she didn't storm forward either. She simply stood still. Julian watched her with quiet reverence. "I can fight this," he said. "Legally, you own the foundational design. I have proof. But this doesn't have to be about revenge. It can be about reclaiming what was always yours." She finally looked up at him, and in her eyes the sorrow had shifted into something steel-like. "I don't want revenge," she said. "I just want my name back." Julian nodded. "Then let's start with the truth." She turned back to the display. Her breath returned, shaky but certain. Around her, people moved, admired, took photos. They didn't know they were celebrating a theft, but soon they would, and Lena Hartley wouldn't be silent anymore. That night, Lena sat alone in her tiny apartment, the glow of her laptop the only light in the room. The walls around her, bare drywall and crooked picture frames, felt suddenly claustrophobic, like a space that once held her dreams now held its breath. She stared at the scanned sketch on her screen. Horizon concept, drawn in ink and graphite on thick paper, the edges curled with time. Her initials, LH Studios, were faint but present, proof not just of ownership but of origin. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wasn't ready for a fight in court. She wasn't ready to face Damon across a lawyer's table, but maybe she was ready to speak. Just a little. Just enough. She opened a blank post. Her words came slowly, as if they'd been waiting years to surface. 3 years ago, I sketched this while sitting on the floor of my apartment, dreaming of spaces that help people breathe again. I submitted it anonymously because I was scared. I thought it wasn't enough. Yesterday, I saw it on display under someone else's name. I'm not here to argue, I just want to show how it looked, when it came from the heart. She attached 3 images. The original sketch, a photo of her hand holding the napkin version she once scribbled in a coffee shop, a short video clip of her talking about modular design in a class presentation 2 years ago. No names, no accusations, just truth. She clicked post. Then she closed the laptop and stepped away. For a few minutes, there was silence. Then, the notifications began. By morning, the post had been shared over 8,000 times. Design students from around the world commented beneath it. I know this sketch. We studied it in my studio class. You just described exactly why I started designing spaces too. Even architects she'd once idolized reposted it with captions like, "This kind of vulnerability is rare and powerful." But not all comments were kind. Some accused her of seeking attention. Others, anonymous accounts, called her bitter, delusional, a failed designer clinging to past drafts. A few hinted she was just a jilted ex trying to sabotage someone more successful. The backlash stung more than she expected. She stopped checking the comments, stopped answering her phone, stopped sketching. The silence she'd tried to escape was back, and louder than ever. Then 3 days later, a small brown envelope appeared under her apartment door. No return address, just her name in clean handwriting. Inside was a folded sheet of old lined paper, a childish sketch of a desk that folded into a chair, imperfect, clumsy, full of imagination, and a handwritten note beneath it. I once thought this was useless. Someone believed in me anyway. Today I believe in you. No signature, but she knew who it was from. She pressed the paper to her chest, eyes stinging, chest aching. She had spoken her truth. And somewhere, someone had heard it. The days that followed felt like waves crashing over Lena's chest, relentless, breathless, unforgiving. Her post had gone viral, just enough to spark attention, but not enough to protect her from the storm. A design blog published an article titled, "Anonymous Sketch Sparks Industry Debate, Coincidence or Claim?" Her name was nowhere in the headline, but buried in the comments, people picked her apart. Some questioned her integrity, others blamed her for undermining a reputable firm, and a few, mostly nameless profiles, called her a nobody, a jealous ex, and worse. Her phone didn't stop buzzing, but she stopped answering. Her inbox was a battlefield of praise and poison. Then came the message from the International Young Designers Committee. Given the ongoing controversy, we understand if you wish to withdraw from the competition. She stared at the email for hours, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She almost typed, "Thank you, I will withdraw." Almost. But instead she shut her laptop and curled into herself on the couch. The truth had a cost, and she hadn't expected it to feel so isolating. Until the knock came. It wasn't loud, just soft, intentional. No one was at the door, just a flat package wrapped in plain brown paper. Inside, she found a single sheet of aged vellum, a sketch. Not hers, but someone else's. The lines were shaky, the proportions wrong, but it had heart. A bench that split into 2 chairs, tied together by a single curved leg. Julian's name was scribbled at the bottom. Below it, a handwritten note. I once thought this was useless. Someone believed in me anyway. Now, I believe in you. Lena's breath hitched. She hadn't realized how much she needed to be reminded that belief, real belief, wasn't always loud. Sometimes it came in stillness. Sometimes it came without strings. 2 weeks later, she walked into the design competition building, not to spectate, but to submit. Not as a guest, as a finalist. And 3 weeks after that, she walked into a sunlit corner studio in the Arts District. Clean concrete floors, exposed brick, plants hanging in repurposed steel frames. Julian's new creative space. He left his corporate firm behind, quietly, completely, and started something new. A design collective focused on ethical innovation and restorative space. No fanfare, no press release, just purpose. And Lena? She wasn't an intern. She wasn't a guest collaborator. She stood beside him at the first team meeting, her nameplate already on the wall. Lena Hartley, creative director, Rediv Studio. She looked around the room. Designers, coordinators, interns, all eyes on her. Julian gave no speech, just a quiet nod as he turned to her and said, "Lead the way." She did. And for the first time in years, her hands didn't shake when she picked up a pencil. Because her voice, once silenced, had become the blueprint for everything they were about to build. The days turned into weeks, and Lena Hartley found herself thriving in ways she never imagined. Her desk at Red Ave Studio was always scattered with swatches, hand-drawn sketches, and annotated design mock-ups. Clients asked for her by name. Junior designers lingered after meetings to ask her questions, scribble notes, and thank her for seeing the potential they didn't know they had. But it wasn't just the work, it was the way she worked now, unapologetically, without shrinking, without rushing to prove she belonged. She had already proven it, by showing up, by speaking out, and by refusing to let her name be forgotten. Her old apartment still had creaky floors. Her rent was still tight. But her heart, it had room again. Room to build, room to breathe. And sometimes when the studio lights dimmed and only the hum of the city leaked through the windows, Lena would look across the room and find Julian, head down, sketching, or reviewing feedback, or just sitting silently, giving her space to shine without ever stepping in the light. There were no grand declarations, no flowers on desks, no whispered labels about what they were to each other. But there were gestures. And one evening she found it, a soft, leather-bound journal waiting on her chair. No wrapping, no fuss. Inside, the first page held only a single line, written in his familiar clean handwriting. "I can go far, but I'd rather stop if that place has you in it." Lena stared at the words, her heart tight. He hadn't asked for anything. Not her attention, not her answer. Just offered a place to pause, a chance to choose. She picked up a pen, paused, then smiled. On the line beneath his, she wrote, "If I go with you, could you slow down a little?" The next morning, Julian found the journal on his desk. He didn't smile at first. He read the sentence once, then again. His hand brushed the page before he closed the cover gently, as though it held something fragile and priceless. That day, they walked side by side down the hallway toward a new client pitch. No title between them, no performance. Just an understanding that whatever this was, it was theirs. Not rushed, not labeled, but real. And as Lena stepped into the sunlit boardroom to present a design that once lived only in the corners of her sketchbook, Julian didn't stand in front of her. He stood with her, because what they were building now wasn't just about space or structure. It was about foundations, honest ones, quiet ones, the kind that don't crack under pressure, the kind that last. Because this wasn't a fairy tale ending. This was her beginning, and she finally knew. She had earned every single step of it. The grand hall of the Global Creative Design Awards shimmered beneath soft, golden light. Spotlights swept across gowns, glass trophies, and architectural models that seemed to defy gravity. But when Lena Hartley Westbrook took the stage, everything stilled. She wore a simple ivory dress, modest, elegant, and undeniably her. Her voice when it came was steady but warm. "A year ago, I picked up the wrong person at the airport, but he helped me find the right direction." The room laughed gently, then leaned in closer. "I thought my dreams lived only in sketchbooks tucked under my bed. What I didn't know was that someone saw them, long before I believed in them myself." Applause rose, not thunderous, but sincere. She turned to leave the stage when she noticed Julian rising from the front row, walking calmly toward her. In his hand, he held a rolled sketch. He joined her beneath the lights, unfurling the drawing slowly. It was a house. Their house. Curved beams, warm oak textures, sun streaming through semicircle windows. pieces of her early work intertwined with his vision of balance and retreat, a blend of style, purpose, and soul. Julian's voice, soft but sure, carried through the microphone. You helped me find the right destination. Lena blinked fast, her voice trembling just slightly as she smiled. I'm ready, she whispered, eyes locked on his. Then louder. Let's go home. The crowd rose to its feet, but for Lena it wasn't the applause that mattered. It was the quiet knowing that after everything, every sketch, every silence, every storm, she had arrived, not at the end, but finally at the beginning. Lena's story reminds us that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the quietest moments and the most unexpected mistakes. She didn't chase power. She didn't scream for attention. She simply chose to speak the truth and refused to stay small. In today's world where creative work can be stolen, voices can be drowned out, and self-doubt runs deep, her journey is a powerful reminder. You don't need permission to matter. Whether you're a young artist starting out or a retired teacher still holding on to your old journal of poems, your voice, your story, still has meaning. And maybe the question isn't, will they believe me? But rather, will I believe in myself long enough for the world to catch up? In American culture today, where innovation often overshadows authenticity, Lena's courage tells us this. Integrity never goes out of style, and real recognition, whether in business, art, or life, starts with being true to yourself even when it's hardest. But now we want to hear from you. Have you ever created something you were too afraid to share? Have you ever let someone else take credit for your effort and stayed silent? What would it take for you to finally reclaim your voice? Leave a comment below. We read every word. Thank you for watching this heartwarming journey with us. If this story moved you, helped you reflect, or gave you hope, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. At Warm Soul Stories, we believe in second chances, brave hearts, and endings that become beginnings. Because sometimes the wrong ride leads you exactly where you're meant to be.